Hi. So, death sucks. It's a little boring. Well, from this side, it seems a little boring. But, in actuality, it's a pretty busy time. Death's a pretty scary thing, isn't it? It seems to be the big specter that we all try to avoid all our lives. We all try to do things to keep death away, and it's always the thing that we're afraid of. But this last while, I've been finding that I don't think that way anymore. Number one, scientifically for me, to not carry on living completely refutes all the laws of causality. You can look that up because I'm not going to explain it right now. And so we do live on. This earth is it's a preparatory state. I kind of liken it to that we're kind of like 3-stage rockets. Okay? When we were born here, we left where we were before. Well, that's kind of like the first stage rocket burning out. Then we live here. And we learn all the things we're supposed to learn. Well, we're supposed to learn them. We learn in different ways. We communicate, and we're able to be a part of people's lives and just to learn to do better. And then we die. That's the second stage rocket. And so that's where we are now with me. I've just burnt out the second stage. Doesn't mean I'm not still flying. So enough talking about death. Let's talk about life. And since it's my funeral, it's my life I'm going to talk about. Start out with, I wasn't a bad kid. Had kind of a rough start. When my mom was 5 months pregnant, I think, 5 or 6 months, somewhere around there, you'll have to ask her. But she was in a car accident, a really bad one. And she got thrown under the car and had her back broke. And she was pregnant with me, and for some reason I still came along. I was angry. I guess when I was born, I had my fist clenched, just angry at the world. I guess Mom and Dad thought I wasn't going to have that easy a life. And for that matter, I can't say it has been an easy life, but you know what? It's been a very full life. So that's cool. I've had other car accidents, actually. I was trying to tally them all up and came up with the fact that I can't even count how many car accidents I've been in anymore. I was able to get through them. I had my neck broke twice. I've totaled more cars than I can say. There's been a lot of, I had blood poisoning when I was 11. And they almost lost my leg, almost died there. I've almost died quite a few times. And yeah, when you think of it, if you sort of, pinpointed your life at that could be all you thought your life was pain. But it wasn't all pain. I had a lot of joy in my life. I was very lucky or very blessed, I should say, to be born into a family with a mother and father who loved each other very much and who really loved their kids. My mom and dad, I'd have to say, are the best friends I have in the world. So that was pretty bleak, what I was talking about before, all the pain and sadness and accidents and hurt and blood and broken bones and everything else. But that's what we go through. That's a part of life. It's only a simple part of life. We also have joy, and we also have happiness that that happen in our lives, hopefully. For me, it has. As I said, my parents were wonderful. I was blessed when I was 8 years old that my brother and I suddenly had a sister come into our lives. I've got my sister down in Texas, but I've only met her once, and that's Rose and the kids, and I miss them very much. But I lived with my brother Joe for years, and Irma came along. This little thing that just was so sweet, and I've been in love with her all those years. She's been wonderful. That was one of the greatest, that was probably the earliest great gift I'd ever been given, was this incredibly beautiful, tiny 3-month-old little girl when I was 8 years old. Speaking of Irma, Terry, marry my sister. Do you have any idea how much my family loves you? I don't know if you have any idea how much I love you. Been really sweet to my sister. And I don't have many gifts I can give people right at the end here. One thing I can give you, Terry, is this: that if you married my sister, you would never have anyone in your life who would love you more and be more supportive and more loyal. So just do, okay? We love you. So I guess I should tell you a few stories about my life, because that's what, eulogies are all about. And you may notice that we have some camera cuts here that might be a little abrupt and whatnot, because we're just doing this kind of amateur. It's not like the professional eulogies you usually see. So I don't think. When I was younger, one of my favorite things to do, and a lot of people don't know this, was riding horses. I started riding horses when I was about 2 or 3 years old, mostly Shetland ponies, but I'd ride with my dad and my mom. And my dad was a real cowboy, and I went on trail rides and all kinds of different things with my dad when I was younger. I got ran over by a Shetland pony when I was 3 years old, walking across the corral. That same Shetland pony, as we went out for a ride, decided to buck me off I don't know, that was about a couple of miles, I guess, away from home. And once he bucked me off, my dad said, well, get back on. And I said, well, no, I don't like riding these colts. Because that's what I thought. Shetlands were so small. But man, that thing was cantankerous. But I loved riding horses. And actually, Dad, if the burial plot doesn't really work out for me, you can always put me beside the horse. Because I wouldn't mind hanging out beside Tootin until I come back. So what are some of the other things I used to like? I used to love comic books, and as a matter of fact, I still love comic books. And my son Jay and I like going to the comic book convention every year, and I'm hoping that he'll still be able to go, because those were fun. And we've got pictures of Jay and I in the Batmobile. I've even got a picture of Jay and I in the Ghostbusters car, and he's got autographs. He's got an autograph from Adam West, and that's pretty cool. So when I was younger, I was his age, I would have loved to have met Adam West. I finally did meet Adam West a couple of years ago. That was great. Cartoons and comic books. Jay now gets up sometimes. Can I get up early in the morning? Yeah, if you can. And when he does get up early in the morning, it's boom, downstairs watching the cartoons. I completely understand that. I loved it. I loved being a kid, and I guess I never quite wanted to stop being a kid. I remember fishing with my dad and my brother, going out to Rock Creek, and this is back down in Montana. I'd go to Rock Creek, and we'd fish, and we'd camp out, and we'd eat, and it was just wonderful times. I remember going on the West Coast Trail a few times, a couple of times, I guess, and always remembering that, and how that was so much fun. And I always still love camping. I must have loved camping. I bought a tent just a few months ago. I also used to do something that a lot of people don't know. To get extra money, we used to collect something called barberry bark. I don't know if anybody knows what barberry bark is. It doesn't grow wild everywhere, but it does grow wild on Vancouver Island. And what you do is you climb up on a tree, and in between the branches, because you'd have branches, part of the tree, branches, in that part, you would cut along, and then you'd cut around, and you'd make sure there was a strip so that the sap could continue to go down the tree. But you would take this bark off, and then you'd put it in your burlap bag, and you'd take it to a place called Garrison Evergreen, and they would pay money for the dried bark, so much per pound. And barberry bark was a significant ingredient in many, many laxatives. So as you were cutting the bark, oh man, if you got it on your fingers, which you did, it tasted terrible if you licked your hands. And then, of course, other side effects would happen too if you licked your hands. Okay. Speaking of hands, one time I was cutting barberry bark, and you can't see it there because I can't barely see it here. I was just looking at this last night, and I can't find the scar, which is probably a good thing, because what happened one day was I was out cutting barberry bark, and I looked out or down, and right underneath me was a deer. And when I looked, it saw me, it jumped away, scared, and I fell out of the tree with my knife and everything. And I didn't land on my knife, I was pretty lucky, but there was a cut stump, and it was sharp. And the stump right there, the stump went right into my hand. I can see it now, this little scar. Of course, now that we're here, I can probably confess to the fact that I did cut my hand, but it healed up pretty good. And I was young. I was about 12 years old. I didn't really want that thing to heal that good. I wanted to show it off to people, because I got a scar when I saw a deer and fell out of a tree. So I took the blasted knife that I'd do barberry bark, and I made sure I cut that thing a little deeper just so that people would be able to see it. So there's a little confession. As many people know, I'm a musician. I have so many wonderful friends all over this country and down the States who are musicians who I've been able to play with. I've been blessed to play with some of the best world-class musicians I believe this world has to offer, and most of them are in this town. Winnipeg is a crazy city for that. I wasn't supposed to be a musician. Somehow I was welcomed with open arms when I got to town, but it wasn't until I was 38 years old that I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be a musician. My parents told me that when I was 16 and I had had the car accident, I went through a windshield out trying to get a Christmas tree, and somebody ran a stop sign, and this, I was in a couple of cars over my life that didn't have seat belts that should have, and this was one of them. It was an old Rambler. We smacked, and I went through the windshield, no seat belt, because the cars didn't have seat belts, and I broke my neck, fractured my skull, and after numerous brain tests, EKGs and things like that, they found out that I wasn't supposed to be anything like this because I'd lost all concept of abstract thought. So I wasn't supposed to be a musician, artist, engineer, or mathematician. But I didn't know that. My parents never told me. They didn't tell me until I was 38 years old that I wasn't going to be a musician. They figured that if I wasn't, I'd lose interest. Well, I never did lose interest. And I guess it's kind of like a bumblebee where bumblebees don't know they're supposed to fly, or they're not supposed to fly. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to play, and so I just kept doing it. And the Lord blessed me over the years that I could actually make a living at this. A very small living, as all us musicians know, but a living just the same. And for some reason, I was able to reconnect things. I was very blessed that way. Some of the musicians here in town that, well, some, I should say most, all that I know, have been so generous to me and welcomed me with open arms, like I said. And this town here really changed me a lot when I moved here. I kind of changed my life around when I moved to Winnipeg. And so if people find any good in me, a large part of that is to do with the people in this city and the way they treat each other and the socials that people have for each other and just the love that people have for each other in this city. The people here are amazing. As well, playing music, I can't help but remember the first time I played in front of an audience. It was at a Santa Claus, well, there was the Santa Claus breakfast, and then there was an old folks dinner the night before. And the night before was the first time. And we did this old folks dinner, and there had to have been about 40 or 50 people there, and my brother and myself and my cousin Ross, and what was his name? Robert Forbes. He was the other guitar player. And we were all 11 and 12 years old, and we had our blue vests and white shirts and our funky little bell-bottom pants, and we went out and played, and we did a bunch of Christmas carols. And I remember doing the Christmas carols that night, and the applause after we did a song, the applause that we got, and I was just gobsmacked. I was like, what is this? And so I guess you might say I became an addict at 11 years old, an addict of applause, and I think I'm still addicted to it. I don't think it's something you ever get over. And the next morning we did the pancake breakfast, which the whole town turned out, and poor Mom, she's out directing us in the Christmas carols, and she was doing a great job, but then somebody yelled out, "Play some rock!" To which my brother and I told my mom, "I think you can go sit down now," and that's when it turned into a dance. And that was what really, really did it for me as a musician. I was just hooked ever since. So things like that was what was able to get me through the really bad gigs. And there are still really bad gigs out there, but I just don't take them anymore. It takes a heap of living in a house to make it home, a heap of sun and shatter, and sometimes you have to roam before you really appreciate the things you left behind. You hunger for them somehow with them always on your mind. It doesn't really matter how rich you get to be, how much your chairs and tables cost, or how great your luxury. It ain't home to you, though it be the palace of a king, unless your soul's sort of wrapped around everything. Home ain't a place that gold can buy or get up in a minute. For it's home, there's got to be a heap of living in it. To the walls, there's got to be some babies born, and then right there you got to raise them up to women, good, and men. And gradually as time goes by, you find you never part with anything they ever used. They've grown into your heart. The old high chairs, the playthings, the little shoes they wore. You hoard. And if you could, you'd keep the thumb marks on the door. You gotta weep to make it home. You gotta sit and sigh. And sit beside a loved one's bed and know that death is nigh. And in the stillness of the night to see death's angel come. And close the eyes of her that smiled and leave her sweet voice dumb. For these are scenes that grip the heart. And when your tears have dried, you find that home was dearer than it was and sanctified. You gotta love each brick from cellar up to dome. It takes a heap of living in a house to make it home.